Hey everyone, this is Timid Falconite, and I'm bringing you another episode of. Well, actually, this is the first episode of Season 3 of Road to 1K. So, um, yeah, this will be Season 3 up until I eventually reach 1100k. Well, 1.1k, which I still haven't done actually, although I'm getting a bit close. So this is what it's going to be like for a little while. So yeah, let's get started with the match. Today's match is this Tier 2 standard match on Viduma Valhalla versus user Giacomo. So I guess let's just get right into it. So this is Viduma Valhalla. I've gone over it in the past. You can double check those videos if you want a more detailed description. But basically, you have a lot going around with this base. You have the pipe seams here, you have these semi-contested comm towers here, and then you also have the airports in the corners and these extra islands with the port and the comm tower. So yeah, also I'm going to do a bit of CL analysis for this match because I don't think I've ever actually really considered. I haven't really gone over Sammy on this map yet. Sammy isn't that good on this map. Her base isn't within one turn of reinforcing to the airport with either infantry or mechs actually. So she can't just build a transport and an infantry unit here and then just load it up onto there. Same thing with these other bases. They're not exactly close enough. Like, they're far enough apart that they're close enough together that they aren't really too good for infantry spread, but they're also close enough together, far enough apart that you can't really just build a transport and an infantry and then load the infantry onto that transport that same turn. You have to prep for a bit for that. So it's for those reasons and the fact that it's pretty big. This is a pretty big map. It's 40 properties, 2 comm towers. Like, I don't think this is not a Sammy map, and which is reflected in the stats as well. As you can see, she's only got 39% win rate compared to almost like crazy 58, or even max is 56. So yeah, I guess let's just go ahead and get into the replay then. So, starting off here, doing some basic infantry builds, going for the base early on, I believe. Yeah. And then I go for the early recon here as well. I think I really like recons in this map because, especially in this area, because like, you can't really reinforce from this base very quickly with a tank, so because it has to go around the mountain. So recons can harass your enemy's infantry very effectively in this area. You build them from this base or from this base here. So I feel like one early recon here is actually a pretty good move. Maybe not like 2 or 3, but the first one I think I like. And especially against Sammy, like, you definitely want to spam recon a bit more when you're playing against Sammy, because not only does it force her to build weaker tanks, recons are just a very effective infantry counter anyways, and since Sammy, you can't really do a head-on one-to-one engagement against Sammy's infantry. If you get the first strike on your infantry, your infantry is toast. So yeah, but as you can see here, already going for this. My opponent's going for the Mech here, where she should have definitely gone for the tank, because tanks are, even Sammy tanks are still a pretty effective counter to recons. They always do a KO, and then I think even with 2 comm towers, they start one-hit killing a lot. CME versus just a recon, so... Well, they can one-hit KO with 2 comm towers against recons and roads, finally. So like, it's not the best, but like it's basically necessary because your mechs aren't going to be able to outmaneuver my recons. It's just not going to work. You need a tank to deal with this. And he's already going for mech spam, which is fine. Like it's guarding the mechs from the recons, which is effective. But the problem here is that these mechs aren't going to be able to they're not going to be able to stop me from taking out the infantry here. Oh, the other thing about Sammy that's interesting that you just saw was she was actually able to finish that cap due to her extra capping ability, so I didn't actually interrupt her cap there. But I did take out an infantry for free, so that's still useful. You definitely want to cut down her numbers as much as you can. Yeah. And look at that crazy good first strike she got here. Like, it's insane. Sammy's infantry are so insanely good. Now, of course, it's gonna go down here because it doesn't really have the extra defense, but tank, I think I built a tank here. I'm not sure why I did, but it's gonna be a pretty good counter to the artillery eventually. Like, Sammy definitely should have built a tank by now. Because while Sammy's capture game is really, really good, if you don't have tanks to like threaten out my infantry, to zone out my infantry effectively, you're just gonna start losing the capture game, which is what's happening. Already. She's like already behind in income semi-significantly. So. And you can see the transport coming out here as well, but like... And I get the battlecopter in response as well. Battlecopters are a very good counter to Sammy as well if you can afford them as well, because they basically just take out all of her good units. They're good against mechs, they're good against infantry. I believe her anti-air is still one-shot battlecopters though. Yeah, even without any comp power, so she can just build a anti-air in response, obviously, but yeah, and the reason I didn't go for the interrupt here is because I didn't have the firepower to, and there were mechs here, so I figured I'd just get the damage on the mechs, so if they aren't really a threat to my tank, and then move in with my other units. Like, it's okay, but that's okay damage against my tank here, but they're not going to be able to kill, which is the important part, because you just sacrificed 1 unit count in the mechs to whittle down my tank to like 2 health, but they're not going to be able to finish it off. So this tank is going to be, I'm going to be able to move it back and then bring it back into a fight. And this recon here is being very effective in just stopping my opponent from advancing up here entirely. So yeah. And I'm not being like super aggressive with it either. I'm making sure to keep it out of the mech's range so that I can't really get first strike by it. So yeah. Obviously the transport copter is sort of mandatory on this map, so you can get the extra comm tower and property here. I think we both got it around day 7 or 8, which is maybe a bit early, but really, once your opponent spends the money there, you have to spend the money there. So that you aren't falling behind. Half damage to my recon, but like, that's fine, I can deal with that. Anti-arms and battlecopters as well aren't exactly the best counter to recons. So he's going for the cap here. I believe I'm going to be able to just interrupt that one, actually, if I want to. Yeah. I have the extra infantry here to follow up with it. And I'm able to wipe him out there as well. He's getting a very sizable income lead now at this point, actually. He's going to be able to bring it back a little bit, so it's not going to be like... It's still going to be around 1k total income difference, but like look at the positioning I have so far. Very good. I have 2 tanks in position to deal with this anti-air. I've got 1 battlecopter to deal with this mechs, and artillery spam as well, and I'm getting a second one already. Yeah. He's moving up a recon here. I don't like Sammy recons. There's really no point to using them because oftentimes they aren't even to 2-hit KO infantry. And since you already have the great infantry firepower anyways, like the move is good, but it's not that good. It's not really going to be, and you're not really going to be able to interrupt caps. However, tanks is definitely the way to go with your flank Sammy over recons. I don't think I've actually, like, so far it's been pretty small in terms of just damage output. I think I'm about a little bit less than a turn of income ahead at this point in terms of value, and I'm ahead 5 units before even building this turn. So that should tell you something about the game state. So Sammy actually goes for the power here. It's a nice, he gets a nice first strike over here and actually takes out my recon that's been harassing them this entire time. But he's got he really doesn't have anything to follow up with over here. Doesn't even Oko here. And I only use my weaken take to attack his anti-air as well there, so... Like, he does a good amount of damage to my battlecopter, but like a 4 health battlecopter is still going to be able to do its job against Sammy. Because all it really needs to do is like whittle down his infantry a little bit. The 1 health one isn't going to be able to do much though. Lots of good mech moves here, honestly. Very good firepower and very good utility use of Sammy's double time. However, it's not going to end up mattering too much. Like, that was good enough to almost clear the unit gap, the unit count gap, and it significantly damaged my income to the point where we're basically even. But I still haven't done my power yet, so. And just look at this crazy good counteroffensive as well. Like, that push with the Mechs was good, but I had enough infantry and stuff in reserve to just counter push there. And I can just pop my superpowers now as well. So, like, at the end of his turn, Sam is not really going to be able to do much. Like, it's just so hard to move once Olaf pushes in with a Winter Fury like that. Like, his battlecopter is going down next turn. His push in the center is basically done. Because well, I'm gonna have tanks following up, so we can't really guard against my anti-air effectively. He's making a pretty good push over here, but I have the artillery here. He's not gonna be able to like make any real gains over here at all. So now that the Winter Fury is a little bit over with, like, look at this income gap as well. Like, he's been completely ignoring this side of the map, and because I've been able to push pretty effectively here anyways, and doesn't have any units to follow up with, like, capping wise over here. Like, the thing about Sammy is even with 7 health infantry, she can still 2-turn cap, meaning that that Winter Fury isn't that bad against Sammy because she can still her capping is still pretty good, even after she takes a Winter Fury. Like she can still 2-turn cap. So Winter Fury isn't that effective at dealing with that, but what it does do is weaken all of her units, especially her more expensive ones. And it just lets me push in with my units and just wipe up all of basically everything. And that's why my opponent resigns here. So, excuse me. Yeah, at this point, it's definitely over. I'm ahead 6k in income, so that's a 3 property swing. I'm about to take another one up here, this one in 2 turns, probably. I'm probably going to be able to push through here very soon, because I've got my battlecopters moving in, I've got my tanks moving in to deal with his anti-air. His mechs are already gone. So, like, the thing about Sammy is, if she mech spams, all you have to really do is get one good push in against the mechs, and they're dealt with. Yeah. Also, I think she invested a bit too heavily in the center here, and didn't at all really contest my pushes in the corners. Like, she's got a couple units over here, and a couple units, like, she just has 1 mech over here. It's insane. She should have had more tanks pushing in over here. She might have wanted to break through this, potentially, so that she can just move in with, and open this area up. But yeah. Definitely, I think my opponent's main 2 mistakes on this map were, first one was not really building tanks, especially early on. She just did mech spam, and you can't really deal with recons effectively with just mechs. My recon definitely paid for itself. It did so much damage in this area, and just sheer income denial, just by that itself. And just wiping out her regular infantry. I think it took out a couple of mechs as well, or at least allowed me to mop up her mechs with my infantry. The thing about Sammy mechs is, like, they're very good against vehicles and stuff. And they should definitely build a few along with, like, a transport copter or something usually, and then you can use those to back up your tanks, and then to push into cities as well. They're very good at pushing into cities, especially against, like, infantry and stuff. But other than that, you don't really want to spam them like crazy. And you definitely can't use them as a front line. You definitely need tanks for a front line, because Sammy doesn't actually get extra defense on her mechs. So, like, just your opponent can just spam infantry against them, and it'll do a lot. Like, the funny thing about this is, like, 1-to-1, this is basically an even trade, as far as HP goes, but, like, because mechs cost so much more, it's definitely in to Sammy's detriment. So my opponent was a bit reckless, I would say, with his mechs. He definitely left them to be, like, too exposed. So that was that. Did I say 2 things? Did I get to 2 things? It's the mech spam. Oh, and then also, yeah, just the mech spam also just made it so that he wasn't able to build vehicles to threaten these areas over here as well. And yeah, this is not a standing map at all. If you're playing Sammy in this map, you definitely want to try for an HQ rush. Like, I think, was it this game? I think it might have been this game. Yeah. So my opponent was actually going for a pretty early HQ rush here, which is kind of funny. But like I was able to just move the tank onto here. You can't do it that obviously if you're going for the HQ rush. The thing about that is though, like if my opponent had been able to move onto the HQ, let's say I hadn't moved my tank onto the HQ. A Sammy infantry just capping the HQ it's actually really difficult to interrupt. Just by itself. Like, you move in with... If Sammy gets the HQ cap and you only have, like, 1 infantry in range, even 2 infantry in range. Yeah, because it'll be... Like, if you get bad luck rolls and she's only brought down to, like, 4 health, she wins. Like, you need to be able to have, like, a tank or something, or a recon or something to make it so that your opponent can't just contest the HQ. So, this map is... You can't really just do that because it's in range of this space for tanks. It's not in the range for recons, actually. So, I definitely needed the tank here to block this. And I think that was what my opponent was just going for, was for the easy HQ cap. But, like, obviously I saw that. No, not happening. But yeah, Sammy can just walk up to your HQ and cap it. And because the HQs are actually relatively exposed, because we're like 3 turns from this base. I'd say it's an okay strategy. The thing is, you definitely want to save up for Victory March on this map because of the HQ. Like if my opponent had saved up for Victory March, let's see. Well, the thing about Victory March is like, but like if she had like a mech here, and if he fought Victory March, she could have just gone in 1, 2, 3, 4 and capped. And it wouldn't have mattered what HP it was at. Even this guy right here, if he were here, she fought Victory March, she could have won by just seating this. So that's definitely something. That's definitely like a slight niche, but you have to be able to. It's a gimmick really for Sammy on this map, because it's pretty easily countered. Like, just 1 battlecopter here, or just 1 infantry standing on there, even really can deal with that, but yeah. So, yeah, but it did, I will say that the early, now that I remember it, like, this early infantry push here got me kind of scared. Because I wasn't sure how to deal with it. And I think, did I base kit for this tank? No, I didn't base kit for the tank. But I definitely would have if I had to. And it would have been the thing about it being this early game is like pushing in like this is like a sort of good strategy. Yeah. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it's a pretty good strategy because it forces your opponent to play semi-defensively around this HQ. And it delays his push a little bit everywhere else. So if you're pushing effectively in other areas, like if my opponent had a tank and was pushing against my recon effectively, that he could have gone and taken this area, he could have gone and taken this area. I think the early APC was a bad move. Definitely should have saved up for like a tank or something. Like, instead of this APC and this mech, could have gotten tank infantry, and that would have been so much better in this area because I didn't really have the funds to deal with that. But yeah. So that's I guess that's enough for this match. next week is gonna be a 1v1 Marlin match. Speaking of quick HQ caps, so that's gonna be a funny map. Sturm is stupid on that map, by the way. But you will see that next week. That'll be next Sunday's episode. So like, subscribe, and all that nonsense. And I guess tune in next week for more Road to 1K. I will see you guys then. Bye.